What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's Speedy Outdoors Sportboat Roundup. For this episode, it's all about islands fishing. We had a really good last week or so of yellowtail at the islands. A lot of activity in the rock pile. So it's kind of this time of year where conditions are similar in the fall as they are, kind of early spring. So it's not quite full speed, but they're around, and oftentimes they're a little bit deeper. So I'm going to go through typical gear that I'm going to bring with me. I have 4 rods behind me, and I'll go through each one and let you guys know what to bring ultimately. So the first rod I have here, this is going to be a rod that I can use as a yo-yo and a rod that I can use to switch up and fish the dropper loop. So yellowtail, they're really good at biting the iron, whether it's on the surface or it's the yo-yo. Yo-yo is usually the first thing that I'm going to drop down. Like I said, we've been seeing them pretty close to the bottom, even suspended up in the water column a little bit. So a good heavy yo-yo jig is something that I'm going to have on there. And if they're not really keyed in on biting the jig, dropper loops have been very, very successful. So dropper loop, you're looking at anywhere, depending on the current, 6 to maybe 10 ounces of weight, but you won't really know until you get out there. So listen to your captain. They'll let you know what pound weight to drop down. And then as far as the actual dropper loop, you're going to have kind of a long tag end with a 1/0, a 2/0 size J hook is totally fine with live bait that's hooked through the nose on that one. And you're just going to have it as soon as you drop down. You're going to maybe tank a crank or two so that your weight is suspended off the bottom and you're less likely to get stuck and snagged. But you're just going to have that suspended there for a little bit, and then you want to slow wind up, change your bait, do the same thing all over again. Drop it down, let it sit there. As for the yo-yo, this thing, very easy. You're going to drop it down, you're going to hit bottom, you're going to wind that thing and burn it back to the boat very, very fast. Now, when I'm fishing the yo-yo, a lot of times I have my rod tip pointed up and not down towards the water. When your rod tip's pointed up, you're able to feel that sensitivity, and as soon as that jig drops down and you feel it hit the bottom, you can easily flip it into gear and start cranking. A lot of times if your rod tip is pointed down, that gravity is kind of carried through the rod tip and you're less likely to feel as soon as that jig hits the bottom. So yo-yo dropper loop on 40 to 50 pound test is going to be ideal for that. This time of year, sometimes we'll see them up at the surface briefly. So I'm always going to have a surface iron rod with me. This is a 10-foot CUI, and whatever your favorite surface iron jig is. For you, that could be anything. But I tend to have a couple on the boat just in case if I do get I've got a backup plan. So my jig stick, my 10-foot jig stick is going to be the second rod I bring. The third rod, one of my favorite rods for fly line. I have a 30-pound fly line rod here, and like I said, we've been seeing them not necessarily at the top, but they're suspended. They're a little bit down. There might be 50, 60 feet down in the water column. So what I'll do is I have a small J hook on here, but I'll put either a 1/4 or a 3-ounce egg sinker on here, hook it through the nose. That way that bait's going to be able to swim, but it's going to be able to suspend down in that water column instead of being straight up at the top where they might not even be. You could have the best bait in the world, but if you're not presenting it where the fish are at, you're not going to get bit. So having it on an egg sinker in that situation might get you a couple bites there. And of course, the islands, you're super blessed to have the amazing variety that we have off the coast here. So another rod I have with me is just a fun little setup that you can fish for rockfish. We were catching lingcod, sculpin, whitefish were biting my yo-yo just the other day. So it's really cool. I like to play around with different jigs, and doesn't matter what jig really. I mean, when they're angry and they want to eat, they'll eat practically anything. But sardine also works. Pieces of squid also work, but me personally, I like to experiment with different jigs just to see what works. So these are the 4 rods that I'd have with me. hopefully you guys go get them before the season kind of dries up and we don't see them for a while. But thanks for watching, and I'll check in with you guys next time.